the people that are pushing abstinent-based always say, well, you're enabling them.
Not one time in my entire life have I ever asked for permission to do drugs. I didn't call my mom, I didn't call the governor, I didn't call the DA, I didn't call the local cops, and I wasn't like, yo, are you good if I hit?
Dirty needle, clean needle, they're gonna do it.
I have a DARE thing that I signed when I was like 8 years old, by the way. I love it. The abstinence-only model is gonna kill people.
Tell it like it is.
We have a toxic drug wave, and it's not gonna go back. We're not going back to heroin.
The best chance for them to stop using is in housing. So this thinking that, oh, look, he was a drug addict and they put him into housing and he OD'd.
Would it be more acceptable to you if they died on the curb, sucking on the concrete? I've been to treatment 28 times.
Whoa, stop right there.
Yeah.
28 times.
Yes, and unhoused in Kensington.
Tell me about Kensington.
Well, I could talk for hours about this, but the reason the residential community members are angry is because nobody has listened to them. The government has completely neglected them and their neighborhoods, and so it's exhausting. The enforced treatment program that we have in Kensington specifically is a huge failure because
we have an important podcast for you today, but before we start, I need to ask a quick favor. We want to learn more about who's watching and listening to this podcast so we can make it better and reach more people. Please take a moment to fill out our short survey at invisiblepeople.tv/pod survey. That's invisiblepeople.tv/pod survey. Today's episode features the amazing Sarah Laurel, founder and executive director of Savage Sisters Recovery. This is the second time we've highlighted their great work in Kensington, Philadelphia. But since our last visit, the city has made it even harder to help homeless people, shutting down services and forcing life-saving outreach into the night. We also just dropped a new documentary where we followed Sarah and her team out into the streets doing outreach in Kensington at night. The film shows what happens when police try to shut down outreach and stop people from helping homeless people. The link is in the description. You're gonna love this video. In this podcast, Sarah shares her own journey through addiction and recovery, why treatment alone fails so many people, and how harm reduction services are under attack across the country. And let's be real, the policies that are fighting against harm reduction, that are outlawing harm reduction, do not solve addiction or homelessness. They actually make everything worse. This episode is about what actually saves lives and what happens when cities punish the people and services trying to help the most vulnerable. I'm so excited.
yay.
Finally.
I know, we've been talking about it for a while.
Right, and the last time we were here, something happened and we weren't able to connect, and we still went out, and it was the day your day center was closing.
Yeah.
Which is so sad.
Yes.
I mean, I like that we're able to document things, but that was something that I was not happy about documenting. And tonight we're going to go out with you again, kind of a part 2, but where I'm going, this first question is to talk about Kensington and Philadelphia in the context of what's happened, because you were forced to close your day center. Mm-hmm. And now they have like these really stupid laws, so you're going out at night.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, I think that there is an agenda that this administration locally has to gentrify Kensington. And in their efforts to do that, they are trying to limit as much resources as possible while actively increasing the number of police and making it more uncomfortable for our friends that we serve. We have learned that we have had to be incredibly flexible and creative in the way that we maintain and sustain our services. The Kensington, when you came down, I had said goodbye to that building on my own time, just me in the building. It was really hard and painful, and I couldn't do it with a crew of people. I had to sit alone with that space. There was a lot of love and life-saving and happiness and connection. We do the same thing now, we just do it at night. And I will say it's safe. A lot of people think it's super dangerous. It's not. Our friends, they recognize us, they can't wait to see us, and we will never stop showing up for them.
Right.
And I think it's important that they see that.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Sidewalk Project in Los Angeles.
I am, yeah.
So Soma is a friend of ours. We also did a documentary on them going out. And I think it's interesting, both Skid Row and Kensington, you have these YouTubers that come down and they say, oh, it's not safe, you can't walk. Yet there's these groups of women-led nonprofits out there helping people. They're going out every day and every night, and it's just a false narrative.
It definitely is. I think for some individuals, it's a shock to the system just to see individuals on the sidewalk, and they are afraid of an open-air drug market. But I was unhoused in Kensington. I was also a resident for years. And I have been able to break through that barrier of a judgment based on what your position or your job is.
Yeah.
So even if you're a drug dealer, I don't care. I see them for their humanity. And we've grown really connected to the community. It's not scary to me. Are there things that are somewhat dangerous? Yeah, but that element exists everywhere. It's a matter of how you approach people and how you step into that space.
Right.
And if you do so with respect, people respect you back.
So tell me about Kensington. There's literally, last time I checked, 9 live cameras. Some people might not even know what Kensington is, and then I just want to hear your story.
Sure. Kensington is a neighborhood in Philadelphia. It's home of the largest open-air drug market, but also home of a really culturally diverse pocket in our community. And I will say, there have been a lot of different changes that have taken place politically. It has been neglected by the government for a really long time, and then real estate investors decided it was up and coming and they wanted the land, and so now we're going through this gentrification push. And in that space, you're seeing a lot more attention in that area, and they're highlighting and creating trauma porn for everybody to observe. It doesn't surprise me that people watch it. It is just disappointing that they profit off of it, and they cause harm to people who are out there. It's not a good thing. Me personally, I didn't grow up in Kensington. I grew up in South Philly. I have a bunch of siblings. I'm one of 10. And I have an Irish Catholic mom and a Muslim father.
That's a huge family.
It's big. Yeah, but I love we're very close.
Yeah.
And then started working in my early 20s in a corporate position, got prescribed an opiate for carpal tunnel syndrome. And that kind of spiraled out of control, which led to me being unhoused in Kensington. And I've been to treatment 28 times. I've been to jail.
Whoa, stop right there.
Yeah.
28 times.
Yes.
28 times. Because one of the myths that I always think is important to bust, if you will, is that people walk into treatment and they magically get sober.
Well, maybe for some people, that could be some
I don't know anybody
experiences.
that's had it.
It wasn't my experience.
Yeah, 28 times.
And I never made it long in treatment. A lot of times I was doing it because my family wanted me to.
Yeah.
And sometimes I did it because I was tired and I had blisters on my feet and I couldn't walk anymore.
Right.
Sometimes I was broke and I didn't have the energy to make money. So I went to treatment. I've been to jail. I've seen a lot of really ugly things. And then one night I went out a second-story window and was beaten and dragged to a vacant lot.
Oh my God.
My leg was separated from my hip bone, and I ended up in the ICU. How I got there was another traumatizing story, but we're not going to get into that. I had to get metal put into my leg to connect my leg to my hip bone. And then I was in a wheelchair. And the only thing that I had when I left the hospital was a dress that said Savage. It was what I was wearing that they cut me out of. And I went to a tiny little row home in South Philly with a friend of mine. And she said, well, we should make a recovery house. And in my head, I thought, I'm not staying sober. As soon as I'm out of this wheelchair and these staples come out of my leg, I'm going back to Kensington. Pretty soon I had a few weeks sober, and then I had 60 days and 90 days. And we named it Savage Sisters because it was the only thing I had that I didn't have a phone, I didn't have a wallet, I just had that dress. And that was the beginning. Now we have 10 houses. We do 53 outreaches a month. We travel the country and talk about drug trends and overdose reversal. I don't think I did it on purpose. I know I didn't.
Right.
But I love it. I love the work.
Right.
So.
And it's challenging work, and it's getting harder. It's getting harder than it should be, because there is a war on nonprofits and there's a war on harm reduction. And you're pretty much at ground zero. In fact, the reason that you lost your day center and now that you're going out at night is because they passed laws against harm reduction. And it's happening across the country, but you're right at the epicenter.
We are, unfortunately. Similar to the tranq epidemic. We were there for that too. That started here in Philly. It was a slow response from the government, no real assistance, no real guidance on how to treat the wounds or reverse the overdoses. And now you have this weaponized agenda against harm reduction in order to gentrify a neighborhood. And I do see it happening. I don't think it's unique to Philadelphia. I think it's more aggressive here. Yeah. I think that it's unfortunate, but it's nothing new to people that have been working in harm reduction. We thought we were making some
progress,
but it was just surface level shit. Am I allowed to curse?
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
It was just surface level. And so when you really do this work, I've learned over the years that people pacify you with approval publicly, but they do not actually support you. And I'm talking politically.
Yeah.
It's sad, but I think the grit that comes with this work is saying, I don't really care if you like it, love it, support it, fund it. I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm going to save lives.
And that's how harm reduction started, and that's how it's going to have to continue. It's not this sexy, cool thing to do. It's going to be siloed, and we have to be able to be flexible.
As homelessness grows, people are getting frustrated, and they're pushing for laws that criminalize homelessness, which will only make the problem worse. Invisible People reaches more people, educating them on homelessness than all other homeless sector nonprofits and campaigns combined. But we do it on a limited budget. We don't have the funding they do. We are mostly funded by individual donations. And now that the economy is struggling, individual donations are disappearing, and we need you. I get it. You might not have the money to donate. Many people are struggling right now. Please share our content, share our videos. It really matters. And if you do have some funds and want to help be part of the solution to solve homelessness, please visit invisiblepeople.tv/donate. Our important work stops without you. We were just in a town. Everybody was saying that their shelters were low barrier, but they weren't. And then I was questioning it, and somebody said, oh, harm reduction is illegal in this state. So they can't even do needle exchange or anything. So that's how they started saying it's low barrier, even though it's not. Many of the terms are just undefined. I mean, we know what harm reduction is. Low barrier could mean a lot of different things. And why I bring this up is well, first off, what is harm reduction to you, and why do you think so many people fight against it?
Harm reduction is meeting people where they're at and giving them the supplies to stay alive. Not safe, but safer. Whether it's sex workers, people who use drugs, families who are impacted by this crisis. It's just treating people with dignity and respect and allowing them to have the autonomy to tell you what they need.
Right.
No agenda. And that's not really found quite often. What was the second question?
Now you're making me think.
Okay.
Why do you think there's such a war against harm reduction? You know, addiction isn't a switch that you can just turn on and off. So if you're still drinking and using to the point where you might die, we're going to help you stay alive. You were 28 treatment centers. Often treatment centers only let you in for 28 days. This is all insurance pays for, and then they kick you out back out onto the streets. And there's not enough treatment for the people that want it. So why do you think there is so many people are against harm reduction?
I think that it's a confluence of different things meeting in the middle. I think it's definitely the history of the drug war. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of political beliefs behind it. I think at the top, there's money involved. There's a weaponized agenda here against drugs. That's not really what they want to do, but it's the easiest, it's the lowest hanging fruit. And so they create this drug war, they incentivize police to focus on it, and now they have this entire thing, and the prison industrial system is a part of it, and this is all interconnected. Now, in order to push that agenda that's at the top, you have to convince society that drugs are bad, okay? And if you don't do that, then you've failed. So the narrative for a very long time has been drugs are the enemy. Let's not talk about mental health. Let's not talk about the truth behind substances and why people use substances and the fact that they're not all bad and they can be used safely. And it's a false narrative. Also, if you look at the DARE program, for instance, kids are told at a young age. I have a DARE thing that I signed when I was like 8 years old, by the way. I love it. Kids are told drugs are bad. Alcohol is a drug. These things are bad, but their parents are drinking. It's this very conflicting message. So then they grow up and then they use substances. And some people, a small percentage of those people will develop substance use disorder, but the majority of people don't. And so we're not really telling the full story of harm reduction. Harm reduction is safety for all. It's safety for all. And when we were just dealing with alcohol and this not as toxic drug supply, it wasn't as deadly. You know, you could experience a relapse and come back from it. But now we're in this new opioid wave with fentanyl hitting the supply. And a return to use could potentially mean death. And that was a big win for the war on drugs, because now they can really spin that narrative.
Right.
And now they can try and say drugs are bad all the time. You're going to jail. We're going to put you in jail for 30 years if you shared fentanyl with somebody. And you see it's like a domino effect.
Right.
And now the society is coming back and, stigmatizing drug use in such a aggressive way. And then we are also the ones that are getting yelled at and fought. And we're just trying to help. That was kind of a sordid explanation.
No, I understand. One of the false narratives that drive me crazy, that they're pushing really hard. I mean, there's this treatment first movement that is trying to counter housing first. We've already talked about how there's not enough treatment that want treatment. So right there, it's all politics, right? They just found something they think they can leverage people. But one of the narratives that they share a lot is they say, well, look at all the people that are overdosing in housing. Like you had a person out on the street doing drugs, you put them in housing, you allow them to do drugs, and they overdose. Well, if you look at the amount of overdoses in the United States, most people overdose in their apartment or their home, right? They are never homeless. They just are using alone. And the percentage of that they're in a permanent supportive housing or a shelter is extremely low, right? And the best place for them, you cannot get better without having dignity, right? Without having privacy, without having some kind of environment that allows you to heal, right? And so this thinking that, oh, look, they put him in, he was a drug addict and they put him into housing and he OD'd. The best chance for them to stop using is in housing, right? At their time.
When people say things like that, would it be more acceptable to you if they died on the curb?
Right.
Why are we even at a place where you would rather them die on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
sucking on the concrete? Why is that even part of the story?
Yeah.
It's a tragic death, whether it happened in the comfort of their home, on the safety of their pillow, or it happened on the sidewalk. It's more dignified
Right.
in that way, but that's the argument. We are missing the plot completely. And it's so disgusting. And the treatment issue, everybody wants to shove people into treatment, send them to treatment. Why doesn't anybody want to go? Make them comfortable. And they'll go. They're not comfortable. You haven't updated withdrawal protocols in 25 years. The drugs are different. We have tranquilizers. You're not treating for it. People are being hospitalized in the ICU, intubated. You're not treating the withdrawal. Why would they go?
Yeah.
But they want to push this narrative, and it makes no sense. And if you sit them down and you actually go step for step, let's talk about policy meeting practice, and you try to confront the lie, they don't want to hear from you.
It's the same, the argument that, safe consumption sites, is they complain that people are using drugs outside and they can see it. And then they complain that people are inside using drugs, even though it's a place that has clinicians and a detox attached and a path to treatment, but that they can't do drugs. They're just using it to leverage, as a political wedge.
I will say in the residential communities, they make very good points about safety within the neighborhood and things that take place in the stores. There's a lot of things that come along with having that element in a residential community. And I think it's important that we sit down and we discuss those and we hear their concerns and we find ways as a community to create safety and barriers that are going to have resources for individuals, serve the most vulnerable populations while also keeping the neighborhood safe for the residential community. But we can't do that because they've pitted us against each other. And if we're fighting each other, we can't fight the system. And the problem is the system. It always comes down to that. They give us who our enemy is, and then we fight. And then we miss the point entirely. And it's unfortunate. I see it playing out in a lot of different areas. It's not just harm reduction. It's not just substance use. It's across a lot of different talking points here. But it's hard to zoom out. It's very deeply personal for people. So you're very zoomed in. It's an emotional topic, and people get lost in that. And when we get lost in it, we get angry. And when we get angry, we're less effective. And that's exactly where they want us to be.
And we live in a society now that's extremely polarized. And if you don't agree with everything I think, then you're the enemy.
And you're wrong.
Instead of
honestly, you are. If you don't agree with me, you are wrong.
Well,
but
yeah.
Obviously, I mean, be so for real. But I have had so many different individuals, and being a harm reduction group, and we have the 10 houses, I have a lot of people who love what we do with housing, and they are very much so against harm reduction. And I don't argue with them. I'm like, that makes sense for you. And I respect that. So if you want to help out with housing. I'm not trying to force everybody to get on board. Don't get in my way. Let us do the work. And that's a crazy thing to me, is that instead of just saying, I don't really know if I agree with it, they want to stop it from happening, which I don't understand that. Just because you don't understand or agree with it doesn't mean it shouldn't exist. And I don't think that's fair.
You said something I just want to highlight again, because you shared that, we need to listen to people in the community because they have serious concerns. Often when there's some kind of NIMBY argument, and all of a sudden the angry advocates are pointing fingers. See, they're NIMBYs. And I'm like, well, listen, what they're saying is real to them. And I don't want to see homeless people out on the sidewalk either. So how do we find that common ground to keep everybody safe? Because if there was enough support for people, there would be nobody on the sidewalk.
Well, and the reason the residential community members are angry is because nobody has listened to them. The government has completely neglected them and their neighborhoods, and it typically happens in lower income communities. And so it's exhausting to live. And I've lived in Kensington and I've seen what they had to experience. There's an elementary school right next to the encampment. It is traumatizing for kids to see people living in those conditions. And so you have to hold space for those individuals, and you have to be able to learn and change and listen to what their needs are and adjust the way that you serve to make sure that you're understanding them, because they're a huge part of this work too. If they don't invite us in, we can't exist in that space, and we have to work together. But in this community currently, it's been so aggressive, it's so heightened emotionally that we oftentimes just walk away frustrated.
Could you explain a little bit about the law that was passed that doesn't allow outreach during the day?
Sure. This law was done by City Council to ban mobile medical clinics, and it is, but in true Philly fashion, it's not banned completely. It's allowable between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. And if you're out during the day, you can be out for 45 minutes at a time. And if you get the permit to be out for 45 minutes, you have to do it at their specified locations, which there's two of them. One of them is the new police-assisted diversion. So for me, I do not want to set up and distro supplies next to police. I just wouldn't want to do that, and I wouldn't want to ask my friends to do that. The other location is on Allegheny Avenue, which isn't that bad, but 45 minutes isn't long enough.
That's not enough.
Well, their response was, it's not a complete ban. They're just gaslighting us.
Yeah. What is the police response? What is this location number one? What are they trying to do there?
So that is Mayor Parker's new treatment court, where you get arrested for misdemeanors like obstructing a highway or jaywalking. Those are the potential charges you can have. You go before a judge and you have to go to treatment or jail. You're given those two options. That was the proposed plan. It was supposed to be a big thing. Now it's only open 4 hours a week on a Wednesday morning. So she took millions for that, and it's been an absolute failure. I think maybe one person successfully went through the program. It is a failure. Wow. The judge came out publicly and said, I don't even know what we're doing here.
Wow.
But that's what it is. And then she opened up a new treatment world. It's like housing and treatment and MAT. It is on State Road, which is where the prison is. And it's impossible to get a hold of anybody. They're taking, I think, $157 million from the opioid settlement funds that Philadelphia was supposed to get. And that's where she's investing the money. I don't know if it will work. It has been a year, and I have not heard of anybody going through. I've heard from a lot of treatment facilities that they can't get anybody on the phone.
I know, a memory comes to mind. We were in a tent encampment in Venice, and the police were going tent to tent. And I'm sure they had good intentions. I did the air quotes for those listening. And there's a homeless advocate, Peggy, who's very ornery. I love her to life. She's amazing. And basically, the police officer was playing social worker. And Peggy just started screaming, take off the gun. Take off, like, how can you go in as, wearing a gun saying, I care about you, that we're going to give you a path out of homelessness and addiction. I mean, the gun changes everything.
I would agree. I also think that police officers are victims of the drug war as well. They are being forced to do social work. They don't want to do this work. I know from seeing them in Kensington often that they're listening to higher ups. They're saying, clear this block. And then they don't want to do that. They don't want to go up to a bunch of people and say, you have to move across the street. I'm not saying that they don't abuse their power. And I'm not saying that I don't particularly like police officers because of the abuse that I've seen happen. But if you go back to the 70s when all this started, you used to be able to call cops if something bad happened. And when you started telling them that they needed to focus heavily on low-income communities that were selling substances and sending them to prison for all these years, you created that animal. And I think some police officers maybe join the force and think they're going to be helping people, and instead they're being told that they have to do social work. I don't think it's fair for them. It's a burden that should be given to the public health and social workers, and instead they're kicking us out and sending cops in, which is incredibly inflammatory for everybody involved. And you're right, with a gun, I don't feel like I can handle this.
Right. And my point is, because the program that you described is, based on police presence.
Right.
And most people, if not all, I'm saying most, have had very negative interactions with police officers. So when you make the access to help through a police department, I'm not saying that police should be able to, oh, you're homeless? Let me help you. Let's take you to a shelter bed. Let's take you to a place where you can get help. Right? But accessing help, the only access to help through the police department is a roadblock that is going to prevent people from getting the help they need.
Yeah, I think the enforced treatment program that we have in Kensington specifically is a huge failure because there's no autonomy there. Nobody's coming to you and asking for help. Police officers are supposed to respond to crime. They're not supposed to target people who are unhoused and using substances for minor crimes that 2 miles away you wouldn't get arrested for, take them before a judge and say, you have two choices and both of them are a shit sandwich or a piss milkshake. That's not what cops are supposed to be doing. And when you task them with that, we now hate them. I hate to say it like that, but now everybody does not want to interact with them. And so they're getting a really bad deal.
It's a basic failure of the system. There's not enough support. And then routing it through police just makes it's just insane to me.
I don't think that Kensington is safer or better because of the police presence. I don't think it ever was impacted positively by the police presence. I think that when residential community members work together with harm reduction groups and communicate and collaborate and have spaces for people to go, that looks like a healing process. That looks like connection to services and linkage to care. But we're so far away from that goal. It's not even an option for us anymore. It's sad, and I hope it doesn't happen across the country, but I think it's going to. I think it's going to get worse. Under this current climate, it's going to get worse.
Well, the new HUD regulations, it's just ridiculous that the Trump administration has weaponized HUD. They're weaponizing a lot of things, but my lens is homeless people and people suffering from addiction, and that they're weaponizing in a way that if you want funding, you can't help LGBT people. If you want funding, you cannot have any type of harm reduction. Has to be abstinence-based only. That is shooting ourselves in the foot.
Well, I could talk for hours about this, but
tell it like it is.
The abstinence-only model is going to kill people. It is. We have a toxic polychemical drug wave, and it's not going to go back. We're not going back to heroin. We need to be working to figure out how to support individuals that are consuming this toxic drug supply. Support them, not punish them.
Right.
And I don't think we're going in that direction, and it's really hard.
We're going opposite.
I think people are going to die.
Yeah.
And I've done this work for a few years now. And if there's one thing that I learned, it's that they don't care. That's not something they're considering. If you say, oh, if you do it this way, people are going to die, that does not factor into their decision-making process. It factors into ours because we love them. Right. They're our community members. So it's not going to happen at a grand scale. It's not going to happen at a national level. I always encourage people, get involved in your community. Stay small, stay local, stay relevant. Understand what's happening in your community. That's the only way we're going to save each other. Because at the top, if I could express how much they don't care about this, I would figure out a way, but they just don't give a shit what's happening on the streets. They just don't.
The people that are pushing abstinent-based always say, well, you're giving them supplies, you're enabling them. We're enabling people to stay alive, and they just think, and you're right, abstinence-based only is a death sentence for people.
Also, I did drugs. I shot drugs. Not one time in my entire life have I ever asked for permission to do drugs. I didn't call my mom. I didn't call the governor. I didn't call the DA. I didn't call the local cops. And I wasn't like, yo, are you good if I hit? I don't give a shit what you say to me. I'm going to do drugs.
Right.
People are going to do it.
Right.
It's going to happen. We have to make it safer for them.
Dirty needle, clean needle, they're going to do it.
I don't care if it's dirty. I'll share it. What do you mean?
Right.
People always say that we're enabling it, as if people are coming to my door asking for permission. Like, what? Nobody's asking for me to give them permission.
Yeah.
Nobody.
You brought up drug supply. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because we are not going back to just opiates.
We are not. We test the local drug supply. We have a connection and we get qualitative and quantitative data. It is absolutely incredible to test the local drug supply because you can update the way you reverse overdoses, the way you do wound care, and inform your friends. They can make a more empowered decision about what they're going to consume and how. Now, what I have seen is that there's fentanyl in the dope supply. When I say dope, I mean what people think is heroin or fentanyl. Right. The majority of the supply is tranquilizers, animal tranquilizers. It is not, and it's medetomidine, it's xylazine, and then other adulterants like the canes, procaine, lidocaine, tetracaine. Now, once you get into this space, which we've been in for a few years, it's polychemical. Poly is just more than one, and it's a lot of different chemicals. So we're not studying what this impact has on the brain. We're not studying the impact of the acute withdrawal stages. We don't really have a ton going on. There are some amazing hospitals in Philadelphia that are doing some trials within the small pockets. But overall, this drug wave that we are undergoing, heroin's out, fentanyl is getting less and less part of the supply, and you're getting into a supply that Suboxone and methadone aren't going to touch. After a while, they're going to be obsolete.
Right.
If we remove opiates, how are we offering medication-assisted treatment to people? How are we keeping people alive? And these are all things that we need to research. We need to study. We need to talk to people who use drugs. We need to sit at the table and figure out in our communities what's in the supply, how do we treat it, how do we help, how do we stop overdose deaths? And we're not doing that.
Right. And abstinent-based is a death sentence.
It's just not realistic.
Yes.
And I don't know who's pushing that narrative overall. I'm not sure. I'm abstinent. I've been abstinent for years. But it's my business. Number one, I think everybody's recovery journey should be their own.
Correct.
And I just don't understand why people are so pressed about abstinence. For what? Nobody's abstinent.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is driven by, in most communities, the only support is a gospel rescue mission, which survives off 3 hots and a cot and Bible studies. And that has evolved, and they feel threatened by anything. And abstinence-based is how they fundraise, winning the lost to Jesus. So that is one pocket. There's another pocket that is fighting against housing, fighting against harm reduction. But the shelter model of going into a program, I feel, is probably one of the biggest opponents. And then there's just this public psyche that is so against harm reduction. It's upsetting because
Well, abstinence came about when we were dealing with alcoholism. And abstinence with alcoholism isn't as deadly because you consume a little bit at a time
Yeah.
and you'll pass out before you'll experience an overdose. But as we've progressed with the way people use drugs and the supply that we have, a return to use is not a slow sip. It's a shot or it's a bag and it's deadly. So we've known this for 25 years now. We know that the drugs are different. We know that the approach has to be different. We know that alcoholism does not look the same as opioid use disorder because I work in the field, because I've experienced it.
Right.
And we need to openly discuss this is what we have to approach different things in a different way. And we have to be open to that and stop pushing that abstinence model. It comes through the 12-step fellowships as well, which I take issue with. I was a huge part of that and I stepped away from because of the work that I do. That narrative can kill people very easily because we are not talking about a slow sip. We are talking about a death sentence.
Yeah.
And we need to acknowledge that, and we need to stop pushing that agenda on people. It's an unrealistic expectation for somebody with opioid use disorder in 2025.
You don't flip a switch. You don't flip a switch.
No.
To get sober. It's not like a decision. Like, oh gosh, I'm going to have chocolate cake today. Or I'm going to, just stop using. Or I'm going to watch some TV show. Or I'm going to whatever. It's not a decision because at some point drugs has taken over your life. And with the new drugs that people are injecting, I mean, it really, they're not using to get high, they're using to maintain so they don't get sick.
Yeah, they got to get well.
Right.
I understand it. I think it's really disappointing because a lot of the abstinence-based rhetoric comes from people in recovery. And we have to work together. If you're in recovery, if you're abstinent, if whatever that recovery looks like, we are such a small population of people already. So separating us is just, it's terrible for the community.
I've never understood it. Because you would think somebody who is in recovery has been around addiction and they can understand that it's not a switch. But sadly, and I don't know why, but some of the opposition does come from.
It's like the recovery Olympics. You're not getting a medal if you're abstinent. You're not getting a medal if you're on bupe.
Yeah.
There's no tiers. We're not in a tiered system. Just be there for each other and support each other. I don't know why that message isn't coming across. But I guess we start with our team. We start with our community.
What a great segue, because I'm so impressed that you guys were flexible. I mean, all of a sudden you lost your day center and now you're doing mobile outreach and you're still pushing forward even with all the challenges. And I assume even with new challenges, you'll continue. So what's next for Savage Sisters?
Rest. No, I think we're doing really well. I'm really impressed with the team, and there's 10 of us right now. We do 53 outreaches a month. We've been traveling a lot. I do want to step more intentionally in the advocacy wing of this because I think we've been doing the work for a pretty good amount of time. I want to talk more about drug checking and the importance of it and how it can influence the community in other cities, and advocate for a ton of different things at a higher level. I think we have a lot of knowledge, and I think the team's capable of that. And unfortunately, in this current administration, I think having those voices and being comfortable standing up with it is going to be very much so needed. So we are in the process of getting into that advocacy work more now.
How can people who live in Philly support your work or support advocacy for harm reduction, and people nationally who might not be supporting your work but support somebody local and advocacy for harm reduction?
Wherever you are, I always say, Find a local organization that you love, that you really think is out there doing the work. If you can donate monetarily, $5, $50, $5,000, go ahead and do that. If you can donate your time, go serve beside them and see where you can give your time. That's always really helpful. And if all you have the capacity to do is share the message on social media and in your local communities, do that. Be an advocate and a voice for us in whatever capacity you can, and don't feel bad that you have a capacity. Stay true to yourself, give what you can when you can, and stay savage.
Stay savage.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
spending a little time.
Thanks.